Alrighty, I am very excited to have Dave back. Dave LaCroix goes by OA Deals online. Today, I think we're going to have a really valuable conversation. If you don't know, in addition to being a very successful OA seller, Dave also has created a Chrome extension called OA Buddy, which helps you basically understand what the limits are. So you're reducing the amount of orders that get canceled and also knowing where to shop that don't really cancel orders. So thank you for being here once again, Dave.
Happy to be here.
All right, so just to get it out of the way, can you give a little background on your Amazon? We're really not going to focus on the story and the whole come up. We've had that conversation sometime last year. Today's really just about how do we get orders to go through, the origin of why things get canceled, how to work around them, some tips and tricks. But just so people know, let's kind of do a quick synopsis of you as a Amazon seller and your journey.
So I got started selling on Amazon in 2016. So I've been doing this a little over 7 years now. Really got my start with retail arbitrage. Didn't have a lot of capital to get started. And that, in my opinion, is the best way to do Amazon if you don't have much capital. So started off buying stuff from the outlets here in Orlando, and really have just been doing the arbitrage model ever since. We did a lot of RA in the first few years and then kind of transitioned more to OA and a little bit of wholesale, starting right around 2020 when COVID hit. But yeah, it's been going pretty well for us. We just actually hit recently over 11 million in lifetime sales. So
Wow,
I'm not the
incredible.
biggest Amazon seller, but we've done a decent amount since 2016.
Yeah, no, I would say so. And I'm not just saying this for anybody listening. If you're not following him, I've told him to hit this to him privately. I've told it to other people. I've mentioned it publicly. His Instagram account is a great place for actionable tips on sourcing and other Amazon things, OA deals. He really introduced me to Keep a Product Finder actually, and just kind of help catapult me with that. And now that's truly probably my favorite way to source. So I really respect Dave and what he's done, and no guru vibe, anything like that. Just like straight facts from somebody who's in the trenches doing it day in and day out. He also has an awesome leads list. OA buddy, we're gonna get to, and that's kind of the whole point of today's video. So I think a good starting point would be, I think a lot of people just assume that orders get canceled because people or sites don't want resellers. But from my understanding, and please feel free to elaborate, it comes under two things. One, they don't want fraudulent activity happening, and the other is other sites are in fact not reseller friendly. And if those are the two things, you have to know why they're canceling, and then you can kind of work around them. But is that correct that everything falls under either fraud or not being reseller friendly, would you say?
Yeah, that's a big misconception. And I'm glad you brought that up, is that these websites don't want resellers. When in reality, I tried to look this up recently, and the number that I found was $165 billion a year in credit card fraud happens. So these companies are potentially losing billions off of stolen credit cards. So that's why it's very important when doing online arbitrage to try to get your shipping and billing address, particularly the zip code, to match. And I'm sure we'll get into some of those strategies, but
Yeah.
like Target, for example, they actually have the second biggest crime lab in all the US behind only the FBI. And there's actually been law enforcement that like hires them to help them catch criminals. So they really like, they're not so much worried about resellers because they're losing a lot more on people with stolen credit cards. And at the end of the day, we're paying customers. But when it comes to doing online arbitrage, you really want to try to look at ordering through the lens of the retailer and not through the lens of a reseller, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that that was a great starting point, because I think right there, a lot of people don't even realize it's not just because they know you're a reseller, it's because of the ginormous number you just mentioned, and fraudulent activity. So let's focus on the fraud stuff for a second, right? You kind of touched upon it. How do we prevent getting flagged for fraudulent activity?
So one uh, one of the biggest tips that I've learned is just don't be sketchy with what you're buying. And I think a lot of people that get blocked from these sites, they're just ordering too much right off the bat. So if you think these companies are not tracking you, then you're going to be wrong, because if you go in and try to place a $5,000 order right off the bat, um, there's a pretty good chance that's going to get blocked, especially if you're buying it for me in Florida and shipping it to a prep center in New Hampshire. That's going to look really, really sketchy. But if I place a $100 order this week, ship it to myself, then a $300 order next week, a $500 order the week after that, they're going to see, okay, this guy's credit card, it's going through, it's fine. And then I can start to ramp things up a little bit further.
Okay. No, I think that's a great place for to chime in. I think personally, and I think we've all been there, when you're new as a seller and maybe you find what you think to be a very good product, you don't have the skill set or the knowledge yet that so much else is out there. So you become a little over eager and you're like, I finally hit the jackpot after weeks and months. I'm
Yeah.
going all in, canceled, right? And so I think this is a great testament to like this truly is a long-term play, and proving yourself, if you will, with the retailer is also like part of that long-term play. You know what I mean? So that makes sense. Um, I think you're all so let me ask you this too, because you brought up at least a prep center. I think a lot of people with OA, not necessarily beginners, it always varies. Is there anything, if you're one of these people that just, hey, I'm not touching my products, everything goes to a prep center. Is there anything you can do to stack the odds in your favor that you're aware of?
Yeah. So there's a few things that you can do. And I think the biggest one is going to be just talk to your prep center. So like the prep center we use, they have some strategies or some suggested strategies that you can use. So number one, I know you're a big fan of this, is using PayPal. So when you order through PayPal, it's only going to show three things to the merchant, and that's your name, email, and shipping address. So your billing address in that case is going to be hidden. So like I mentioned earlier, with the shipping and billing not matching up, that's much more likely to trigger a fraud alert. So using PayPal is one way to get more orders through. Then you could also, like our prep center will allow us to set our credit card billing address as their address. And then if they don't allow something like that, you could always look into getting a PO box or a UPS box in the same zip code as your prep center. So that's another strategy you could use. And lastly, you could use suite number, apartment number, room number. So adding these little changes in the address, if it is getting canceled due to the address just being blocked, you'd be surprised that just adding suite 1 or room 1 or suite 1 office may actually be seen by their system as a different address. But with that, you still got to talk to your individual prep center. You don't want to just do it without telling them. But right. Yeah, so those are a few strategies you could use.
So a question for you there on the suite number, that makes a lot of sense. But would that be an instance like, hey, my prep center is such a big warehouse, let's say it was 4 parcels, but they've taken over all. So they technically have 1, 2, 3, and 4. but like don't just go and put a random suite number or else it might not show up at the right place, right? And again, talk
Yeah.
to them first, right?
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah. And
me
I
tell
think
me
a
about
lot of prep centers have different bays and different addresses that they use. So
yeah,
yeah, you just have to talk to them about it.
that makes sense. Tell me about how the PO box works. Because to be honest, I'm not just asking for the people. I don't fully understand. Like in my head, I'm thinking, well, won't this go to a UPS store that's not my prep center?
Yeah, no, so I was just saying you set your billing address for the credit card as the
Hmm.
PO box.
Okay, I gotcha. I really like the idea of talking to your prep center and seeing if you can use them as your billing address. That would
Yeah.
be, I guess, I don't know off the top of my head. How would that affect you, if at all? It would just be they might get some mail, BS mail on your behalf type of thing, like, with like credit card solicitation.
Yeah. Yeah, like you could always switch to paperless billing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they could get some random stuff. Our prep center, they said that they'll just shred it if they get anything. But
Okay.
yeah, the only other problem I see with that is it's not great for invoicing purposes or your receipt that
Mm,
your billing is not matching what's in your Amazon account. So
yes.
that's one negative to doing it.
Okay.
But I don't know. When it comes to seller support, usually if you submit something enough times and just be persistent with it, you could
I
usually
know.
get it to go through eventually. So the
Yeah.
trade off may be worth it, but it's really kind of an individual decision.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's something to at least consider that I've never even thought of was in the realm of possibility. So that's great. I appreciate that. So, um, you touched on this. I'm a huge fan of PayPal, and I don't think everyone fully understand why it works. So thank you for explaining that. Basically, they're only seeing one address, and that is going to be your shipping address. Um, and you still, by the way, get to use your credit card and get credit card points and Rakuten and all of that stuff. There's really no downside, in my opinion. If there's ever an option, and it seems to always be an option now, why not do that, right? Would you
Yeah.
would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
And I
So
think some people use like Google Pay as well, but I'm not sure if that works exactly the same way, but I'm guessing that it probably does.
okay. Yeah, I would imagine too. I think I had to do that recently because I just couldn't get an order through, and that was one of the options. Took me 2 seconds. I linked a credit card and it went through. So like very seamless, and it must have worked just in the same realm as PayPal. So let me ask you this too. And I've heard you, I believe, mention this before. A tip that you have is you listen, when you get orders canceled, for fraudulent activity, reach out to them and just prove it's not fraudulent. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I've seen an Instagram post from you a while back. Do you reach out when you get fraudulent stuff, or like how do you handle that?
Um, we would like to. Honestly, I run out of time sometimes to do stuff like that, but yeah, we had a situation like a couple of years ago where we were ordering like $1,000 orders from Kohl's, and we would just every time after we would place like maybe 5 orders, then we would call and just ask them, hey, why was this canceled? And they're like, we need to verify your information. So we verified everything, and then they were able to do a replacement order for us. So for me, it like really has to be worth my time. If it's
Right.
just like one random product, I'm probably not going to bother to call. But
Yeah.
in this case, we ended up ordering like tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff from Kohl's, and it was a pain to call every single time. But um, in that situation, it was worth it because we were making a lot of money off of those orders.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I've had calls, I'm sure you have too, like the smaller sites, and they're calling just to verify. And like off the top of the head, I'm making up a BS story. And sometimes
Yeah.
they'll take it and sometimes not. Have you ever had an experience like that? And like, do you just kind of make something up on the fly, or like do you just like not answer? Or how do you handle that if they call you to verify? And maybe you don't recognize, who it is.
Yeah. So I always feel weird when they call, and I'll usually just be like as vague as possible, like, oh, it's for a business. And then if they dig deeper, like, oh, are you a reseller? And then I'll usually just say that we are. And there's been a couple sites that they have canceled it because of that. They're like, yeah, we don't sell to resellers, but like those are probably not the type of sites I want to work with anyway,
Right.
because if they're policing it that hard, there's a good chance they're going to file an IP claim
Mm,
or send a cease and desist. And then I'm stuck with the inventory and just eat the cost. So
yeah.
if they really are a site that doesn't like resellers, which, like I said, most of the time they don't care, they just want to make sure your payment's good,
Yeah.
then we pretty much just are okay with it getting canceled.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's always fun on the fly. You're unexpected, and I'm just like, oh, it's and it is like it's not a huge deal. If it cancels, it cancels.
Yeah.
It is
And
what it is.
sometimes they
So
like, they'll like, you'll be like, oh, it's for a business. And they're like, oh, is it a company party? And I'm just like, yeah.
no, always whatever they lead with, you just roll with. That's like rule
Yeah.
101 when it comes to arbitrage as a whole.
Yep.
All right, cool. So just to kind of recap there on the fraudulent stuff, how big it is. PayPal, I think, is the simplest. It sounds like, two things that are really simple to do. Well, I say simple, not always doable, is matching your address, use PayPal whenever possible so they only have one address, and then also just use patience and common sense and ease your way into these sites. Don't just draw negative attention to yourself with these outlandish purchases with frequency or quantity, right? So all good stuff there. And now let's talk about the other side, the cancellation because of not being reseller friendly, right? So as you were kind of mentioning, it's probably not as big as people necessarily think, right? It's like a lot of it's the fraudulent stuff. And a lot of times when you get emails cancellation, they don't explain why it is. It's just canceled, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yeah.
um so so this is kind of where we start to dive more into OA buddy, which we're gonna get to. But I'm just like, I think sometimes the loud minority, like people talk about, oh, why do wholesale? Why not work with companies that want to take your money? And I'm like, something I said to somebody, I was like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say, oh, to be successful at wholesale, you need to reach out to 100 suppliers in order for one yes, because that means 99 also don't want your money, technically,
Yeah.
right? So like they all have their hiccups and barriers and stuff like that. But I will say some of the sites, and tell me if you agree with this, that aren't reseller friendly can actually be advantageous because if you know how to navigate them, you're going to have way less competition. So do you have some sites like that you know that most people can't get through, but you know how from some of the techniques we'll talk about, and like because of that you have a huge edge?
Nothing that we've gone back to consistently, but we have had a couple of times where I use some of the strategies mentioned here. So using PayPal, we also recommend using a VPN and making sure that your VPN location is also close to where the shipping and billing is.
Okay.
So that's a big one. And then also using a private browser, because a lot of these sites, they're tracking your cookies, they're tracking a lot of other data, and they can actually just tell where you are based on your Wi-Fi connection. So
Right.
we've used these strategies. And then there was one site that I can think of that we were able to place like a $5,000 order, and the site wasn't reseller friendly, but we were able to get this one order through. And that's definitely a big advantage when you can do that and get around these things, because then you're basically creating a moat around your products of
Right.
your competition can't get them, but you can.
Yeah. So you hit on two things there. Let's break it down for beginners or even just people like myself. I don't think I fully understand what a VPN is and how it works. If you can kind of share that with us.
So VPN just is shows where you're located
Okay.
and or where your computer is connected to the internet. So um, they have services that you can purchase. The one we use is called Hide My Ass.
Yep.
But there's a bunch of other there's free ones out there, and there's a few really good reputable paid ones. And so I can basically make it look like I'm shopping from Boston, which is really close to my prep center. And that's going to help to get more orders through. And then
Gotcha.
when it comes to private browsing, we recommend using a browser called Brave. And you can set that up so that it clears all your cookies and site data whenever you X out of the browser.
Okay.
So we set that up, and basically you could do all of these steps, but if a site sees based on your cookies that you just did an order from a different location that's not your VPN, it could mess up the whole thing, and they're going to know it's the same person. So doing those two steps on top of the other ones we already mentioned is a good way to get more orders in.
So let me understand this then. So then do you use Brave and your VPN all day, every day, or is there any reason not to use both of them all the time in conjunction with each other?
I don't use it all day, all the time. I do most of my work in Chrome, and then
Okay.
if I am placing orders, I'll use Brave. But
Okay.
I have a VA that places orders for me now, and that's what he uses. But yeah.
So, okay, and this is truly me wanting to learn as well. So I just want to make sure I understand this correctly because if I have questions, I feel like other people too. So Brave is basically an equivalent to Chrome, Google Chrome, whatever. And but they can't track where we're located. Is that correct?
They can track it, but it's basically you can set it up so that when you like if you go to walmart.com, you'll probably notice when you're on Instagram, you then get an ad for a vacuum
Yes.
cleaner on Walmart or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you use you could actually do it in Chrome too. I just think it's easier to keep separate, where
Okay.
you just continuously are clearing cookies and site data, and it'll show you in Brave like all of the trackers that it blocked.
Hmm.
So I think Brave's like unique selling point is that they're like more of a private browser, where with Chrome, it's not really targeted towards that. So
Okay. So Brave basically they don't track your data, your searching history, your site history, and then VPN is more specific to your location.
yeah.
Is that accurate? Okay. And give me a price point on what those might run you or comparables.
Um, VPNs, like I said, there's some ones out there, but the problem with the free ones is I think most of them won't really allow you to choose your location.
Okay.
So you might not be able to get it near where you're shipping to.
Got it.
And then Brave browser is free,
Okay.
but a VPN doesn't really cost all that much. I think it's maybe $10 a month or something.
Oh, okay. Perfect. And what about does that also does that provide any like security measure? Like, let's say you're someone that likes to source in public, at a coffee shop or something like that. Do you know if that provides any protection? Like, this isn't up my wheelhouse, so I'm trying
Yeah,
to
I don't
pick your
I don't
brain.
actually know either.
Okay. All right.
I learned like what I needed to learn related
Yeah.
to online arbitrage, but I'm not super technical in my knowledge about VPNs.
Okay. So let's say we run a VPN right near my prep center, but my billing address is still out of state. You're saying you think that increases the likelihood of success because it's like, people move or they could live in two cities, but like they're shipping something right to where they're located. This probably, seems more legit. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. But I
Okay.
mean it's tough to tell because it's going to be different for every website, and there's no like one size fits all approach. And
Yeah.
people will ask me like how much can I order from Target, and it's like, I don't know, and nobody really knows.
Right.
It kind of depends on who the person is, where they're shipping to, and a bunch of other factors. So
Yeah.
I try to tell people to use OA Buddy as a guide, and not like people will tell me like, oh, this is wrong. But it's like, yeah, it's never going to be like 100% accurate, because people have different situations and different billing and shipping addresses. So
Yeah.
an order that might work for me might not work for you.
No, that makes sense. So let me ask you this. You go to a site, you have an order canceled because it's not reseller friendly or it looks suspicious or whatever, but you really like this site. Okay. So let's forget the mindset focusing on sites that you can successfully place. Because I think a lot of people early on, they only have so many in their pocket. What's your protocol? Are you waiting 2 weeks? Are you using a different credit card? If you maybe went prep center, are you shipping to your house? All of the above. Like, how would you kind of recommend someone newer in the game? You know, they want to go to the site again, but like you can't try again 2 minutes later and 3 minutes later. You know?
Yeah. So we have like a couple sites like that where we've been blocked from, and every now and then I'll just go in and try another small order. And if like
Yeah.
a sale's really, really good, but I know I'm blocked, I might go in and try a small order. And there have been a couple times where like we've been blocked, and then I try again 6 months later and I get an order through. And then you can
Right.
try to slowly ramp things up a little bit, but it's like the bigger the orders you start placing, the higher the chance that it's going to get canceled. So you kind of have to
Yeah.
take it case by case and just try to be incremental with how much you're ramping up orders.
Are you from the mindset that, hey, once you get going and understand the ones that allow you to successfully order quantity and over time, that's where your focus should be?
Yeah,
Or
for sure.
and just like not even worry about the other ones, like there's too many opportunities out there to waste your time?
Yeah, we're always looking for new sites and new opportunities. So we usually, when we start with a new site, we'll probably order 10 to 20 units. But yeah, there's a couple sites where no, there's absolutely no restrictions, and we can order as many times in a row as we want and ship it to our prep center, and there's been no problems. And that's where like OA Buddy's really valuable, because you can see those sites and know like, okay, I can really push the order quantity. So, and then
Yeah.
it's obviously good to spend a lot of time on those sites, because um, the more money you can spend on inventory, the more you're going to make when it comes to Amazon.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and I do the same thing. I would like to say though, just to play devil's advocate for those people that are newer and aren't as skilled in sourcing or don't have the capital, there's a lot of sites that OA sellers won't source from because of that reason. It's like this isn't worth my time, the constant cancellations. But if you're willing to be patient and place one order a month, two orders a month, that can really add up and create a barrier because you're going to have far less competition. So if you ever get canceled, I would almost say make a note of it if you really like the site and go back next month or something and place a 5 unit order. Over the course of a year, you find a couple of stores like that, you place a couple hundred orders. I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars in profit potentially. So I would say I agree with you. I also subscribe to that. But for the people that are newer, there is opportunity in those sites that cancel if you're willing to play the game a little bit. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And we know one site that it's like, I'll just give you the site. It's feelunique.com. And
yep.
they, usually we can get 2 orders in, and then they start canceling, and they have a limit of 9 per item. So it's like, we'll go in, we'll buy 18, and then the next day or two after it ships, if the sale's still going on, we'll buy 18 more. And that has worked for us to get orders in. And like you said, those types of products have more of a barrier to entry.
Yeah. By the way, I love feel unique, so I'll double down on that.
You can
For
blur
anyone
that
not
out or beep it
yeah.
out.
But no, it's all good. If anyone wants to take action and go to the site, by all means, there's a lot of things to scope through, but just know there is opportunity there, like any other site, to be honest. So, um, all right, cool. So we've kind of referenced OA Buddy a little bit. Why don't you explain what it is and kind of how it came to be? I think your own pain point turned into a business opportunity type of thing.
So OA Buddy is just basically a note-taking app for online arbitrage. So if you go to Target, we left a note about Target on how much we think you can order and how far you can push the orders until they start canceling or blocking your orders. So like I said, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but as of this recording, we have, I think it's like 470 sites in there right now. And
Yeah.
most of them are sites that we've personally ordered from. We track all of our orders, and whenever we have new data to add to any website, we're putting it in there. So it's just a way to get alerted in real time when you're shopping about data related to order cancellations.
Yeah, no. And by the way, I'm a customer. I think it's great. It's to me, I think the cost, correct me if I'm wrong, was around 250 bucks. Does that sound accurate? I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, it's 200.
Okay, so basically it's a Chrome extension, and every time you're on a site one of the 400 they have on there, it lets you know basically, hey, this is the quantity limit that we have faced, or somebody has said this before. And this way, you know not to maybe push it too far. And if you save one order from going through successfully, it pays for itself. Like literally, I use it every single day. And by the way, one thing that I love about OA Buddy, you can filter all the stores. There's a really simple filter that's either reseller friendly or not reseller friendly. I share that to say, if you're new to sourcing, this would be worth its weight in gold because now you have a list of all the sites that are reseller friendly so that you can go there and start sourcing those with confidence, not having to worry, is this going to get canceled or not? The work's already done for you. And like, I'm not just saying this, one buy literally pays for itself and then you have it for life. So I really like that feature about it as well. And I think it's a great way to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of people, including myself, use it is like, if you're looking for sites to source from, just go in and look at the reseller friendly ones. And that's a really good starting point. So you're not wasting your time with sites that cancel orders after the first order.
Totally. I also like that it's just simple. It's smart, it's simple, it's like very easy to use. So how did you conceptualize like, hey, I'm gonna create this product?
um, just as well as I do, like order cancellations is a big issue. And I was just kind of thinking one day, like, we should really be like keeping track of when and how much we can order from each website. And then this isn't my first Chrome extension. I did one several years ago called Bulk List Builder. That was to be used with tactical arbitrage. Um, so I actually don't do any coding myself. I just hire a developer on Upwork to do the actual code. And then it's a pretty simple idea. Like you said, just a simple note next to each website. So it wasn't that expensive to have it built. And it started off as like my own use. We had like maybe 100 sites in it right off the bat. And then I shared it with my lead list. I actually didn't expect it to like blow up as much as it did. And then when a lot of people started finding out about it, other gurus in the Amazon space, they're like, oh, this is so cool. Like, let me promote it. So
Nice.
it's grown bigger than I expected it to.
That's always a good thing. That's awesome, man. Good for you. That's cool. And yeah, it is. It's just a very practical, simple product. And I was gonna ask you, do you know how many people are currently using OA Buddy by chance?
It's a little bit over 1,000 people now.
Wow, awesome, man. Good for you. Um, so, I wanted to ask you your take on a site. Okay, there's a cosmetic site. Um, and I can place one order, and I'll talk to you after this to talk about the site. Uh, every single time I've tried all of the tips and tricks, like I just cannot get an order to go through. So I have to imagine they're tracking my IP address or something like that. Like, does that sound like a textbook play to use the private browser and VPN? Because if my if my credit card information and billing address shipping's the same, I haven't placed so much. Um, do you ever encounter sites like that? And like, was that what you would do to try to at least attempt to get around it?
Yeah, I just think maybe you could get one additional order
Yeah,
in by using the techniques and shipping it to like a prep center and have one go to your house or warehouse or wherever.
yeah,
But as soon as you start putting in like multiple orders to the same address, it's probably going to be tough to get around it, but you might be able to.
yeah,
Like you could try like the suite room number, and maybe they'll see that as a different shipping address, and you could get more orders in and just use PayPal on all of them. So
yeah,
I don't know. It could be doable.
yeah,
But some sites are like really, really good. And sometimes I don't even know how they're figuring out that it's me. So
yeah. It becomes a
just
game. It's like
depends.
a game at some point, you know?
Yeah.
Um, one thing I definitely want to touch upon is catchalls. For anybody not familiar, catchall email would be I can buy the domain Duke does Amazon, and I can have infinite uh, words, symbols, etc., email addresses that are at Duke does Amazon. So I could do Jonathan, Jonathan B, Jonathan 123, infinite amount, right? And I just want to kind of paint the picture. That is great from my experience for uh, being able to get multiple disc coupon codes, like a new sign up, whatever. But when it comes to cancellations, they're really more or less looking at the addresses and the other things. Do you think is that do you agree with what I just said, or do you think that using a catch-all is another layer of, oh, look, it's a different email address that's also, not as fishy?
Yeah. Like you said, I think it's not as important as the zip code on the billing and shipping,
Yeah.
but it could help in some scenarios. One other thing that I use one time is I don't know if it'll work for every website, but if you put like say my address is davelacroix@gmail.com. If I put my email address as dave.lacroix@gmail.com, I had a site that would see that as a different account, and I could make multiple rewards accounts.
Yeah.
But that will actually, if somebody emails it, it'll still go to my email. Like the period in the actual name of the email doesn't change the email address. So I ended up making like a ton of accounts with just different, like then you move the period around, D period Ave LaCroix,
Right.
and just you could put two periods in and like have
Yeah.
multiple rewards accounts.
Yeah, no, totally. And there's different symbols besides just periods. I think like the underscore and stuff that also, like you said, you can move them around so much that you can play that game quite a bit too. But I will say Catchall has been a great $12 a year addition. I've gotten
Oh
so
yeah.
many coupons off of that. I think that's something that everybody should have. If you just do a YouTube search for Catchall emails, you'll probably find that.
Yeah, I'll
So
have
yeah,
to
I
look
mean,
into that.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's awesome. I guess just to recap, as far as if it falls under the umbrella, so we're not talking fraud, reseller, again, proactively, PayPal, matching up shipping and billing addresses. Don't be crazy on your spends. If you look at OA Buddy, you'll have an idea. And by the way, I'm not just trying to say that like it's true, but also you can ask other people if you network, hey, have you bought from this site? Do you know what the limit is? I do that all the time, for anything that's not on OA Buddy. And then I think the the VPN and the Brave, the privacy browser, are things I'm going to be adding to the mix as well. The fact of the matter is, getting in the orders is a big part of arbitrage, but also I would say find the sites that are willing to have successful orders and spend a lot more time and energy on those, especially the big sites. Like, I don't know, I'm just thinking of one like Vitacost. They have beauty, they have grocery, they have like vitamins and supplements, and like they're pretty friendly. So become incredibly good at that rather than okay at three other ones. At least that's my view on it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good way to summarize the whole thing.
Cool. All right, perfect. So I'm gonna have links below to all of Dave's stuff. Also, I have an affiliate code and a discount code for OA Buddy if anyone wants to try that out. That'll all be below as well. Other than that, again, check Dave out. Very, very practical, straightforward tips and tricks for Amazon and specifically online arbitrage. If you need a leads list, he's got a great one at that too. Anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Nope, just that I'm a big fan of your show and your Instagram as well. Very
Thank you.
practical also. It was cool. It was cool to talk about just like a topic focused podcast rather than just the same questions about my
Yes.
Amazon
Yeah.
journey. So that was
Yeah.
cool.
No, I'm glad you said that, and thanks for the compliments as well. But yeah, as I do this more and more, I'm like, yeah, there's certain people that have certain niches or whatever, and I think that would be very valuable, and especially people I respect in the space. So you hang tight for a sec, Dave. We'll talk for a little bit, and appreciate you guys being here, and we will talk soon.